Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new to campus info session for Columbia Barnard Matriculate. My name is Quinn Simpson. I am one of the two co-head advising fellows, which just means that I help lead Matriculate on campus. I am a junior in Columbia College, and my pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm from Austin, Texas.
Awesome, and I'm the other co-head advising fellow, so you'll be seeing a lot of Quinn and I. My name's Angie. I've also been texting all of you, so that's that. I'm a sophomore in Columbia College studying human rights and economics. So I'm also from Madison, Wisconsin, and I use she, her pronouns. Awesome. So first things first, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your summer. Again, this is coming in right before you guys start moving in, so we really appreciate you guys taking the time to come here and watch us talk about something we love. And also, it's really admirable that you guys are really going for it and signing up for something that you haven't heard of before you even get to campus. Again, like
I wasn't even thinking about signing up for things my freshman year until like October. I don't know about you, but
yeah, no, totally. I was on like 30 email lists after the activities fair and then was so overwhelmed that I didn't even do anything basically for a semester. So except for Matriculate, which is why we're here. So yeah. Quinn, you want to
yeah.
talk
So let's see. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and start with a quick introduction of what is Matriculate. And so there are two big parts to Matriculate to your Matriculate experience, right? First and foremost, you're going to engage with Matriculate as a community organization of Barnard and Columbia students. So we already have a bunch of advisors on campus, and what we're doing right now is recruiting a whole new cohort of advisors, and all that means, and we're recruiting the 2021 cohort. And what that means is that all of the people we recruit are going to serve high school students who graduate in 2021. And you guys will be a close group, a tight network on campus of people who are all working towards that same goal. In addition to that experience you'll have on campus, Matriculate is also a national nonprofit organization. It's headquartered in New York City, which is really cool because you have super easy access to staff, and you can go down. They love having people visit the office. You can go down anytime. It's just down the one line. And so what that means is that you will also be part of a national network of advisors. There are other Matriculate organizations at different campuses that are similar to this, where there are advisors who are doing this work. And so you'll have access to that. Staff support from headquarters, as well as, all of the professional development opportunities you'd expect, and access to that national network of like-minded students at a variety of schools across the U.S.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Thanks, Quinn. So now that you've heard a little bit about what Matriculate is and how it's structured, I think it's obviously important to talk about what we're actually trying to accomplish through Matriculate. And I'm really proud to say that we have a super clear mission. We have a really clear landscape of change that we want to happen. So just to give you guys a bit of context, across the United States, there are around 35,000 high-achieving, low-income high school students that graduate each year. And around 50% of these students don't apply to a single school that is an academic match for them. And most of them don't live in urban centers. A lot of our students are in rural areas where they might have less resources from either the city or nonprofits located within those cities. And that's a huge problem. I think it's just like 50% of students that deserve to go to really amazing schools don't even know what's available to them just because of where they are / what their experience and their circumstances are. So Matriculate's goal is to help these students, and we want to fix this opportunity gap between these students.
So obviously, the next question is, how is Matriculate solving that problem? And I am happy to tell you more about that. So what we do is we recruit college students like you and me to become volunteer college advisors. And we call those students advising fellows. And we pair each of those students with up to 4 high school students, and we call the students that we serve high school fellows. you'll notice that, and we abbreviate those, so you'll often hear terminology like AF and HSF and things like that in Matriculate. And these students are from all across the US. So like Angie mentioned, most of the students who are not applying to schools that are an academic match for them typically live in rural areas, suburban areas, etc. And so your advising is virtual. You call them once a month or more, using Hangout or Skype or FaceTime or whatever works best for your student. And so solving that geography issue with the problem, you as an advising fellow will have a really clear role. You'll dedicate 4 to 6 hours, total hours per week, to advising your students. And you may have a differing number of students. You may end up with 4. You may end up with fewer. But regardless, we expect your time commitment to remain the same, 4 to 6 hours per week. And you'll scale how much time you spend on each student, depending on how many students you have. So that's the bulk of your time commitment as an advising fellow. And the other really important thing about being an advising fellow is that you stay with your students for a really long time. So if you joined our cohort, when you submit your Matriculate application, we will interview you, we will onboard you, and then you'll get assigned your students next semester. So that could be as early as February or as late as April. And you will stay with your students for the rest of that semester, the subsequent summer, and then the whole rest of the subsequent academic year. So that's 3 semesters. And that's really beneficial because you're able to develop these really close relationships with your students. You become really invested in their success. And you also are a more effective advisor because you know so much about your students' lives and sort of about their process and the kind of support that they need. And so, yeah, Angie, do you have anything to add to that kind of explanation of being an advising fellow, the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. I will say that one really huge advantage of staying with your students for 3 semesters is that you really get to know them and really get to form those relationships. And it feels really good every time that your student hits a milestone that you've helped them achieve. And it's just a really fulfilling experience, as well as the commitment. So
I would also just add, sometimes people ask, are we trying to get students into Ivy Leagues? And the answer is no. We want students to get into a high graduation rate college. And all that means is it's a school that checks certain boxes that we look for the types of resources that help under-resourced students graduate on time. And there's a wide range, a long list of schools that meet that criteria.
Exactly. Great addition. Thank you so much. So the question is, we do all this work, work with your students for 4 to 6 hours, you go to our meetings, does it actually work? And the answer is a resounding yes. So Matriculate, and Quinn, you can speak to this a little bit too, underwent a study with a professor at the University of Virginia to see if our model works, because no one wants to invest time in something that isn't actually effective. And they found that there was a statistically significant increase in enrollment of students that underwent peer-to-peer Matriculate advising, as opposed to students that only received some sort of messaging. So more than just you helping your students enroll in college, on a larger scale, all advising done by Matriculate advisors is truly changing the landscape of what higher ed looks like, advancing educational equity, etc. Quinn, do you want to add a little bit onto that?
I would just majorly retweet. It's really exciting in the nonprofit world for the model that you have to actually work, and for you to have. I mean, Matriculate has only, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but Matriculate has only been around, since 2014, 2015, and so to have such an impact in such a short amount of time is really, really encouraging. And Matriculate is actually so confident in our model that we're expanding very rapidly. And I think that may actually be on the next slide. So maybe we can just segue right into that. Yeah. So what does it mean to be involved in Matriculate nationally? I just started talking about this a little bit. As I said, we were founded in 2015, and we have been growing very rapidly ever since. So for the group of students we serve that are graduating in 2020, we're serving over 2,000 of those students. And then we have a strategic plan where our goal is to serve 6,000 students per year within 3 years. And so you may remember we talked about how there are 35,000 students graduating every year. And so if we're serving 6,000 of those students every year, that means we're serving a significant percentage of the total addressable population of students who are at risk of not attending a high graduation rate school. So we're super, super excited about our growth there. And so what does this mean for you as someone who's just now thinking about getting involved in Matriculate? Well, it means that you are getting in on the ground floor of a rapidly growing, building, expanding organization. Matriculate has momentum. Matriculate has enthusiasm behind it. And basically, we are on a really clear upward trajectory. And so you will have a lot of opportunities to learn and grow with this organization as it learns and grows, and extract all of the benefits that you might expect from being in so early in this process. Some of those opportunities include amazing professional development opportunities. I kind of talked about our staff. They are all lovely and wonderful and love interacting with advising fellows. And you can go hang out anytime. You'll also meet staff on several occasions. You'll meet staff during our training. And then there are also, biannual conferences, college access conferences that Matriculate advisors go to. It's certainly not required, but it would be an option for you as an advisor. And that's a really good opportunity to connect with what I was talking about earlier, which is this national network of peer advisors. You'll meet and make connections with students from all over the United States. And so a lot of really great opportunities there getting involved in Matriculate nationally.
Totally agree. One thing I would also like to add is that, again, since we're so close, there's a lot of opportunities to see kind of into the back end of what Matriculate does. Nonprofits have so many systems and models and things going on in the background that are just so fascinating. This summer, I was one of the interns at Matriculate, and I got to learn so much about what it means to manage 6,000 students and what it means to do X, Y, and Z. So since we are Columbia Barnard, unique opportunity, there's lots of chances for you to speak with these people, especially if you're interested in going into nonprofit as a profession or are interested in systems building and like how to run a nonprofit like a business. That is super available to you, especially if you do choose to join and then maybe be an intern. It was really fun.
And two things. Yeah, I would just, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important to be clear. Like, we have a unique opportunity as students who are in Columbia. Like, you can intern from Matriculate during the school year. And there are also internships during the summer. So there are an abundance of opportunities for you to get involved. And Angie, do you want to keep talking about what your experience was like?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I learned so much more than I thought I would from this internship. I really got to build my own projects and kind of understand things from the back end. And as someone who wants to go into nonprofit or into human rights law, just seeing what the one-to-one kind of relationships are and how things change and models, it was super, super interesting. And yeah, that's an opportunity that only Columbia Barnard really has. I mean, technically Yale also, but nah. They have to travel 3 hours anyway, so basically not an opportunity for them. But anyways, so now you've kind of heard about what it means to be part of Columbia, Matriculate nationally. Let's zoom back into on campus because yeah, Matriculate is very multi-leveled, but we really want to explain what it's like to be a part of Matriculate on campus. So we have around 60 Matriculate advising fellows in the cohort of 2020. So that's the group of students that I'm a part of that are the advising students that will graduate in 2020, high school students. But now we are super, super excited to build a community of students, college students that will be advising high school students that will graduate in the class of 2021. Basically, we're just so excited and pumped for you guys to be part of our community. Hopefully, just setting goals and what it might be to be a part of our community. We really want it to be a safe, a welcoming place, a touchstone for you to come back to, and have friendly faces who really care about the same thing. And I think that Matriculate is super awesome because yeah, we have a lot of people like me who are super interested in like working a nonprofit, and then we have a lot of people like some of our members of our AFLT who are passionate about this but are also studying different things. So you really get to learn and grow with your fellow advising fellows. Also, you'll make some of your best friends that you've ever had and hopefully rope in your best friends into this program. I know that I've met so many of my amazing friends through Matriculate, and that's because
like me.
Yeah, like good. Because it's so wonderful to be a part of a community that's super passionate. I know for me personally, Columbia can feel a little bit like stifling sometimes, just there's a lot of work and there's a lot of responsibilities. But I know that every time I go to an all cohort meeting, I'm going to be surrounded by people who are change makers and who are really trying to advance things in the world. And that to me kind of like gives me a boost every month. So yeah, we want Matriculate to be a place for you to grow and to feel safe. Additionally, for the next year, we're looking to the cohort that we're recruiting right now to be the leaders in next year. So there's lots of leadership opportunities. I would love for you guys to be the next Quinn and Angie recording a digital information session a little bit too early in the morning. You know, great opportunities. So definitely that's available, and you can talk to us if you want to know what that kind of looks like, what those responsibilities are. But yeah, that's kind of a gist of what Columbia Barnard Matriculate looks like. Quinn, do you have anything?
And I would also note that just a few kind of random things is that there are different levels of leadership opportunities. So you can lead Matriculate at Columbia if you want. You can also be on that leadership team that Angie was talking about, which is kind of a different level of commitment. So you can find roles that work for you within Matriculate. Two other things I would say is that we already have a really strong network on campus. Matriculate is one of the larger student groups at Columbia. I like to say we have about 100 current advisors, and as Angie mentioned, we have about 60 active advisors. So you will be part of this really strong network going into Matriculate. And then the other thing I would add, and this kind of ties back to what we were talking about on the last slide too, there are a lot of skills that you're going to take away from your Matriculate advising that are really applicable, and that you can really sort of market yourself going forward. Being able to manage people, being able to communicate clearly, and being able to, have an effective relationship with somebody. Those are all really important skills that are really, really good things to have. So, yeah.
One more thing I'll add before we move on. Also, this is a great opportunity for you to get connected with maybe upperclassmen on campus. I know that there are a lot of human rights majors in our cohort, and I was like a baby first year and I didn't really know what classes to take. So I really leaned on a lot of my peers in Matriculate to kind of guide me through that. Obviously, you can find that sort of mentorship in a lot of places on campus, but I would say that Matriculate at Barnard and Columbia, really, we're such a caring community. So I never felt like I was being a burden by asking questions. And we really want to impart that onto you guys as well. You have heard me and Quinn in our text be like, do you have feedback? Do you have questions? And that's because we really do care. We really care about being open, being transparent, and allowing everyone to kind of lean on each other. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. What is the Matriculate experience like? If you were on the call, which is totally fine that you weren't, we had one of our former high school fellows who is actually attending Columbia this year with you guys, talk about her experience, about what it was like to be a high school fellow. But Quinn, if you want to share a story about your experience as an advisor, that would be really helpful.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to kind of explain in like a rational or like a logical way, like what it feels like to build relationships with your students. You kind of just have to do it. It's really, I'll pull from something. We also had one of our advising fellow leadership team members, Michael, on the call, who was talking about the process of advising your students as a process of reflection and kind of encouraging your students to be reflective about their process in high school and kind of start to become real people, right? Thinking about the things that they've done and why they do them and sort of what motivates them and what they're passionate about. And there are also just a lot of, because you're so close in age to these students, you're able to talk about a lot of the same sort of things because you have had, similar life experiences, and oftentimes you'll have similar interests with your students as well. So, gosh,
I
what's
can
an
give
interesting
a
story that
story
I
too.
have? Yeah, you should share an anecdote.
Yeah, so the last meeting I actually had with one of my students, we were starting to work on the personal statement, the dreaded personal statement. Um, and we were just talking beforehand because we usually start our meetings by like just chatting because I think my student's really cool. She's really sweet. I love talking to her, and we kind of went down the rabbit hole of like, um, she watches a lot of anime, and like I used to do that as a kid. Mostly my brother. I thought my brother was really cool, so I kind of did whatever he did. So it was really interesting to reminisce on things that like had been under the surface of like my mental state for a really long time that I didn't remember that I did or like knew. But we got to relate over that, and that kind of helped me understand. And she does a lot of creative writing about really like heavy themes. Like one thing that she's talking about or thinking about a lot right now is reincarnation. We're both Chinese, but her um, family's more Buddhist. So getting to talk about these like huge societal things in the context of like, hey, what's up? How's your week? Has been like super interesting, and she really challenges my view of the world a lot of the time. But kind of going back to the story, basically, it all kind of clicked when she had mentioned a certain anime that she watched, that she enjoys creative writing and that she thinks about these themes. And then this piece of like, I watch these shows, really helped me understand and kind of moved us forward in the personal statement process, because I always think that the hardest thing is starting because, I mean, that's just like 650 words to describe who you are completely, crazy. But we really kind of found that like cornerstone that enabled us to like take the step forward and start writing. So that's kind of example where like your relationship will be super helpful with your advising, but also super fulfilling. And yeah, challenging. Like it really, not in a bad way, just like it helps you think about the world outside of yourself when you have students that are relying on you to think big and think outside. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and one thing I would note is that sometimes people are anxious. They're like, "Oh my gosh, is it going to be my whole responsibility to get this student into college?" They feel like they're not going to be up to the task of doing that. And I would say two things. The first thing is that no, we very much understand that you are a person in their college process. You are not their guidance counselor, and we are not expecting you to single-handedly get the student into college. It's their process, and you're just someone who's providing input and providing support on a consistent basis over a long period of time. And that's not to say you're influential. Matriculate high school fellows typically rate their advisor as one of, if not the most influential, one of the most influential students in their college process. And then the other piece I'd say is that you will be rigorously trained and you'll be provided consistent content and skills support throughout your advising experience, both from Angie and myself and from the lovely professional staff at headquarters that I talked about. So there's no reason to feel anxious about not being able to any anxieties you have about not being able to be a good advisor. We will certainly build those skills in you.
For sure. And then I would add on to that, a huge part of our curriculum is giving our students the skills for them to succeed. So you'll often see that like your students are building upon what you've taught them and using the skills that you've employed, which is both very satisfying and really like seeing your students grow is amazing. But second of all,
Yeah.
allows you to empower them to make choices and decisions and essays and whatever on their own terms, which lifts the burden off of you, but also enables them to be successful in the future. So definitely don't be anxious. That's not the best way to say it. I recognize your anxieties. I definitely had those anxieties going through training, but going through the process and leaning on my leadership and my staff has been really helpful in alleviating that. So next steps. Quinn, do you want to go through this super quickly?
Yeah, so it's really easy and really straightforward. There is a clear next step for you. If you are interested in Matriculate after watching our webinar, which hopefully you are, you can submit an eligibility form right now. at matriculate.org/apply. And so this is just a really straightforward collecting just some basic information about you. And what that does is it gets you in our system, so that then Angie and I can reach out to you. We will schedule a time to get in touch with you one-on-one, so that one of us can answer all the questions you have about Matriculate and give you more personal context and information. And so that's what that second bullet point is. We'll reach out to you. Angie might be able to chat with you during INSUP, or we'll be able to meet up for coffee. INSUP, woo! Or we'll meet up with you once this semester starts too, because INSUP can be crazy and you might not have time. And if you're eligible, you'll also immediately receive an advising fellow application. So our application process is all online. You'll fill out the application. It's substantive, but it's not crazy. It's just a few 250-word responses. So as long as you're thorough and you explain as much as you can on that application, you'll be fine. And then once you submit that, we'll review it. If we decide that you're a good candidate, we will reach out to you for an interview. And then we'll interview you, and then we'll decide whether to onboard you. And so that's what the application process looks like. One thing I would flag is that our application process is not competitive. So you'll encounter clubs on campus, like the a cappella club, or a lot of finance pre-professional stuff, where they've got a limited number of spots and they're comparing people against each other, to see who can fill those spots. That's not our philosophy at Matriculate, because we want to serve as many students as possible. And we're fairly confident that there are going to be a lot of people at Barnard and at Columbia who are good advisors, or who have the potential to be good advisors. And so all we're doing through the application process is comparing you against our standards and kind of screening you to see if you have those qualities, persistence and grit and organization and understanding of the Matriculate mission, things that would make for a good advisor. And if we decide that you have those things and that you've demonstrated those things, then we will, no matter what, accept you as an advisor in Matriculate. So
yeah, totally. Our philosophy that we've been carrying through this process is that Matriculate is for everyone. You're at Barnard and Columbia, and that means that you've done something right in the college application process. So no matter what your interests are, no matter what you have had experience in, everyone's college application experience looks different. But if you care and you want to make a change in this huge opportunity gap and advance educational equity, we want you in Matriculate. No matter how many people feel that way, we want you in Matriculate. Yeah. So last slide, we just want to say, welcome to Matriculate. You've made it this far. You're part of the family. I mean, you've listened to us rant for around 30 minutes, so woo! We are so excited to get in touch with you and talk to you, and really do fill out the eligibility form. It's like 2 minutes. We'll reach out to you. We want to get to know you on a personal level. I love meeting new people. I'm a big extrovert. So yes, thank you so much, Quinn. Any last
Yeah,
words?
thank you. I would just say, again, welcome. We are really, really excited to, we know that you have strengths. We know that you have kind of a unique background that you're bringing to this experience. And we are very, very confident that you have unique skills and unique things about you that you can add to our organization on campus. And so we're just really excited to have the opportunity to get to know more about those things that kind of make you tick, and why you are interested in this work. So again, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Thanks for sticking it out to the end, and we will look forward to reading your eligibility form soon.
Bye.
Bye. Woo.